Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer, number 7812-601. This is a horizontal spring pivot with a Jamb Bracket, medium-duty hold-open trim, polished black japanned. What is this? This is a spring, double-acting spring pivot, a horizontal, double-acting spring pivot. Where are you going to see these? Really, very, very commonly, most commonly in residential applications between the dining room and the kitchen. My great-grandparents' home was finished in about 1941, maybe, on the northwest side of Chicago. Kitchen, dining room, double-acting door, Bommer horizontal spring pivot. That's where you're going to see those all the time. You'll see them in corridors, long corridors down doors. You'll find them really leading off of kitchens, or a corridor to a kitchen, or a kitchen corridor and then leading to something else like a mudroom, let's say, something in that area. I've seen them in small homes, very large homes, and residential applications primarily. I don't see them in commercial applications, although you can see them in commercial applications. They do have, Bommer does, I should say, they have a model of this that would handle a full-size 3070 commercial door. But generally, residential applications is where you'll see it. Homes is the bottom line. They are known to last several decades. Bommer has been making these for several decades. I don't know how many. Lots of decades. There's very little change to the design over the several decades. I would say that one made in the year now 2020 is not going to fit identically in a door prep from 1950, but small modification would be required, I would expect. I've bumped into it, and I don't have any dimensions from a 70-year-old installation, but it did seem to me that you'd have to make certain things a little bit larger. So we're looking at a 7800 series double-acting horizontal spring pivot. In the 7800 series falls the 7812, of which there are other models. This model, what makes it a 12, is specifically that it is hold open, that it is medium duty, and includes a jamb bracket. You change those three and you change the part number. This is going to be meant for up to a 90-pound door, okay? And it's going to double act, and it will hold open as well. It has adjustable spring tension via this tension collar that's here. And they will include a tension rod so that you can insert that into one of those holes and rotate that so you can increase or decrease, and you get the idea. You continue to work that down and around so that the door behaves at the proper type of speed and control that you like. This is hold open, meaning when you get it out to about 85 degrees, if my hands were strong enough, I could rotate that all the way out and get it to hold open. And how that works is there's a bird's mouth prep in the tip there that will get over this bearing that's here, allowing it to stay open until you pushed it closed. It includes a jamb bracket. Now, a jamb bracket is, and this is covered in oil, a jamb bracket is this. Okay, what happens with the jamb bracket is you are going to attach this to this, the body to the jamb bracket, and then attach the jamb bracket to the jamb. Why would you want the jamb bracket? Well, it's because you do not want to drill into the floor at all. Let's talk about why you wouldn't drill into the floor at all. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. You wouldn't drill into the floor for a few reasons, I suppose. A, you don't want to, and you don't have the bit to go into it. B, you shouldn't, because you run the risk of cracking something. You might have some tile and you say to yourself, gosh, I don't want the weight of the door sitting on that and then me having these stress points of a door moving and then the body very microscopically moving this way. I don't want to stress that at all and crack it. You might have radiant heat in the floor, and drilling 4 holes into it would be very much not advised. So you may not do it. And then finally, you might not be able to. It might be a type of surface that is just not conducive to drilling into. So in those applications, you use a jamb bracket, assuming that your jamb is going to be wood or a hollow metal frame as well. This would work out just fine. Okay, So that's the Jamb Bracket. Let's take some basic dimensional properties of this hardware while I have it out. You know, just quite basic. Overall of the body itself, okay, looks like it's about 9.5 inch. Not a lot really to see here at all. We've discussed what makes it a 7812. We'll go over that a little bit more in a moment. This Jamb Bracket, about 2 3/4 by about 2 3/16 by about 3.5 inch. Okay, it's made of steel. That's something else that is defined in the 7812, meaning the base material of the trim plates. They're steel. Some of them are. There is a series available in brass. There are 2 trim plates included. They are identical. There is no left and right. There's one for each side of the door. That's unfortunate, and we'll talk about why that's unfortunate in a moment. Overall width of your trim plate, about 9 7/8. About 2 9/16 overall height. And this plate is in the 601 finish, which means bright black japanned. The process of japanning metal is an easy internet search to do. You'll be able to find that. The year is 2020. Bommer, to my knowledge, has always made the 601 finish, bright black japanned. And for 30 years, they've always offered a 601 finish. It's likely they have always offered a 601 finish since 1876 when they got started, because japanning, black japanning, whether it be bright or dead black japanned, was very common. You know, post-Civil War, turn of the 20th century, things of that nature. Black was a very common finish. They don't have a matte black or dead black japanned, and the term dead black comes from other catalogs where I've seen black, bright, and dead black japanned offered from lock manufacturers. It may have been Sargent where I saw it, or Yale, or Corbin, I forget. Bommer does not do any powder coating, unfortunately. That would be nice if they did, only because powder coating is somewhat the rage today, although you really only see it in a black powder coat. But that black powder coat is marginally reflective. It's not matte, and it's not semi-gloss like this is. It's not as reflective as this. It's less reflective. The other difference is that this is a smoother finish, where the powder coating that they do with black, they call it black suede powder coat. I believe the use of the term suede is a marketing angle, because there is a small texture to it. Powder coating is painting an item with paint, and that paint is dry. It's particles. You charge positive to the paint and negative to the material, or whatever, vice versa, opposite charges. And the paint hits that material and it really sticks because of the opposite charges. That's powder coating. But it doesn't go on super smooth and glass-like. There is a very light texture to it. Someone who was intent on discovering and making light of that, they certainly could. The only downside of this is that it's a bit more reflective than I think what you'll get if you're matching black on other hardware, because it won't be black japanned. It'll likely be powder coated, is likely what it'll be. But I've had people order this when they're doing black on their doors. Doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Okay, since we're obviously touring the hardware, you have the heel plate that's here. That's going to go on the pivot style of the door. That's going to allow you to clean that off. And then, of course, your trim plates are going to come here and here. Nice, clean finish. Working our way up the door, you're going to have the top pivot. This is the header portion. That's the door portion. Okay, that's what's going to allow that to double act. These are available separately. This is called this part number is a 7890. That bushing can be purchased separately as well. I don't remember that part number. You can find it, Bommer bushing, in the site probably. Why would you need the top pivot? Well, if you run 6 decades of use on this, that top pivot might be a little fatigued, the bushing in particular, or you might have an extremely high volume application, and you go through bushings about once a year on this material. So you can buy the 7890, or it's just bushing as a separate product. You're then, I already showed you the tension rod. The only thing left is all of the fasteners, so we won't go through just a package, several packages of fasteners. Obviously, for the plates to the door, the jamb bracket to the jamb, the horizontal spring pivot down to the jamb bracket, the header portion and the door portion for the top pivot, to each side, 4 screws for that. So let's switch now to the screen view and let's take a closer look at all of the supporting documentation. Here is the item that we are looking at, and let's quickly look at some photographs that we have listed down below or linked to. Here's your package, your box I should say, the label. There's everything you get. Instructions, screw packs, pivot, jamb bracket, heel, trim plates, body. Close-up of the spring, tension collar, that bird's mouth prep on this, and then the bearings that it'll fit over to hold open. A little closer up view of that. Heel side view, front end view, just for the sake of showing it. There are your trim plates. Your heel plate, top pivot, jamb bracket, screw pack, screw packages, and your tension rod. Now let's move to, let's now move to, bear with me, I want to get back to my placeholder. Okay, the item itself, let's look at the extended description. Iron and steel mechanism with steel trim and a jamb bracket. Anti-friction bearing, that's a reference to right here, these anti-friction bearings. There's one on either side to keep that operating really nice and smoothly. Double acting naturally, hold open at approximately 85 degree, adjustable spring tension via the collar. This will work on doors 1 3/8 to 1 3/4 thick. You can make it work on thicker doors, but you're going to need to give some consideration as to how you treat the edge of the door, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. Maximum door width is 3 foot. Maximum door weight is 90 pounds. I find with Bommer that these are pretty solid guidelines. Can you put it on a 4-foot door? Sure. Will it work very well? Maybe. Maybe not. Your mileage will vary. Depends on how tall the door is, the actual weight of the door, the environmental conditions. Can you put it on a 2-foot door? Sure. Will it work very well? Maybe not. You've got a pivot that's meant for a 90-pound door, and you're using it on such a small leaf. These are guidelines, and if you call the manufacturer, I believe that they're just going to repeat this information. And with Bommer, it's very common for clients, with our guidance, in fact, to experiment. There is some logic to, well, if the door doesn't work correctly, add another hinge to it. And Bommer's material is, in my opinion, notoriously over-engineered. Not over-engineered, but engineered to such a point where, like I said, these are guidelines. A little bit of poetic freedom and expression is pretty common. Okay, now there is a table down below that I will refer you to. It has all the different part numbers that are here, and it has all the different columns that are here. Now, what's the difference here? Well, as I said earlier, they make different variants or derivatives of the 7800. Your question is, which one do I use? Sure. I would personally start with the weight of the door. How heavy is it? Use that to determine what you need. Okay? You'll notice, let's pick off the bottom 2 rows here. You'll notice you've got these 90-pounders and this 90-pounder. Well, you've got side plate material, steel, 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 brass, brass. You can do a medium weight spring with a brass base material for your trim plates. Why would you want brass for these trim plates? Well, while polished brass plated over steel is a nice finish, a solid brass trim plate with a polished finish is a very much nicer finish. So if you want an architectural base material for these trim plates to achieve a true architectural finish, you'll want to gravitate towards the brass base material. Okay? By far most common is steel, however. So we've talked about the weight, we've talked about the trim plate base material. You obviously also have a column for duty. That helps to a certain extent. You know, who's to say that, you know, I don't know if my application is light or medium or heavy. Let the door weight guide you. We don't sell a lot of the HD versions, but we do occasionally, where they're for 150-pound doors. You'll notice then next whether or not the spring tension is adjustable, yes or no. You'll notice whether or not they have a hold open, yes or no. You'll notice whether or not they have a jamb bracket included, yes or no. Okay, so that's how you'll determine what you need in that regard, whether or not you want a jamb bracket. So this table, this chart is very handy because it will guide you in terms of determining, well, is a 7812 the one I want? I don't know. You know, so this table is where you would determine that. Some notes down here that you can read, should you need to. The jamb brackets can be bought separately as well as those 7890s. Now, let's switch over to the cut sheet that's here, and it's a 2-page affair that we have. Now, you'll note that we've taken their table and we've just expanded it to stuff into it all of the other columns as it pertains to these units. Okay, you've got some general guidelines as to a door clearance on either side, a clearance at the top, a clearance at the bottom. The 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch at the top, just make it 1/8 of an inch, that's standard. A 1/4 inch clearance between the jambs, we'll talk about that in a moment. That's not an absolute. That can most definitely be smaller. And it may need to be wider, probably not, but it might need to be. That 9/16 we can't play with, though. That's going to have to be a hard and fast figure. So why mention that as a hard and fast figure? Because if you have an 84-inch finished opening, your question is, what size do I cut the door to? Well, you have to have 9/16 here, and then this. So 84 minus 9/16 minus what you do up at the header, which is probably 1/8 of an inch. Okay? So if we're following along, that'd be 83 and 5/16. These 2 pages will show you all the models in a bit more descriptive fashion. 7801 with floor plate or with jamb bracket. You'll always get a floor plate. Okay, the question is, you know, will you have a jamb bracket added to it? Forgive me, I realized I called these columns, I believe, earlier. These are obviously rows. Okay, this column of floor plate included needs to be yes. You'll always get a floor plate, whether or not you get a jamb bracket included. So as we go through this, you'll see how the part numbers change as, based on their original table, how the options change. I can tell you that the 7811 is probably is definitely the most common unit. It is adjustable. It is hold open. It does not include a jamb bracket. Okay. The second most is the 7801. Light duty use. No jamb bracket. That's where you're going to see that one all the time. Has a hold open feature. It's non-adjustable though in the spring tension, I believe. Yeah, correct. No adjustability on the spring tension. 7811, most common. After that, 7801. If you're not sure what you need, because you know you don't need a 7811 or an 01, use the table to help you determine. And by all means, reach out to us as well. So anyway, moving on. Which model you're going to select, we'll be happy to help you. But the first question I'm going to ask is, how heavy is your door? Do you want hold open? Do you want adjustable spring if necessary? That kind of thing. So let's now move to the next document that's here, which is the template. Okay, let's just tackle this. This looks gnarly. It's not at all. There's also instructions here. We're going to, well, there's a lot of duplicate information here. Let's tackle the template first. Okay, so the first third of the page, they're just giving you a whole bunch of dimensional properties that, you know, are likely not important to you right now. Okay. Moving to the middle third of the page, they're giving you dimensions that are important to you. So what they're telling us, they had already said they want a 1/4 inch margin between the edge of the door and the jamb on both sides, in fact. And that's certainly a good guideline, but as I had mentioned earlier, it doesn't need to be that. So you'll note that they want a radius on the pivot style of 1.5 inches. And you might say to yourself, well, I don't know if I can do a radius. I don't think that I've got the right tooling. Who has a 3-inch roundover bit laying around? Not many people. So let's take a closer look at this. So a 1/4 inch is being called out. 1/4 inch to face of jamb when mortised. When you're going to take that jamb bracket and mortise it down here into the jamb, you'll have a 1/4 inch. If you're going to surface mount the jamb bracket on your cased opening frame, you need to go to 3/8 of an inch. Let's assume that you're going to go with a 1/4 inch and that you'll mortise that. Only I'm saying that only so that you keep a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch on the other side as well. Now let's study that a little bit deeper. 1.5 inch radius, 1/4 inch over here. Let's hop over to this lovely tool that we have. I'm going to, and I'm not an AutoCAD expert, but I'm fairly proficient. Let's draw a couple of generic objects here. Just a couple of generic objects. I'm going to snap that a little bit better. So let's say that that's 0.75, and let's make the jamb 5 inch. Okay, so what we have here is an object that's 3/4 inch thick, 5 inch wide, just thinking about something looking like a door. Let's now draw another, let's draw a polyline, and let's just say, let's make that 35.5 inch. Okay, enter. Let's make that 1.75. Okay, let's change that to, that did not work how I wanted. Let's get rid of that. Let's try it again. .75 at 90. Perfect. Let's go back. 35.5 inch. I believe that needs to be 180. Very good. Okay, now we have that polyline drawn, and it's meant to basically look like a door. Let's take this. Let's copy it. Let's paste it. Let's put it over here just so that it, kind of looks correct. We're not going to be worrying about that side of the door opening at all. So what we're going to want to worry about is we've got this here square edge door, okay? And they want us to put an 1.5 inch radius on there. And the question is going to become, where do we put that? So when we're looking at the template, we know that we've got to have a 1/4 inch margin and an 1.5 inch radius here. So let's draw ourselves that 1.5 radius. These units, I don't remember what my grid is set up on. Okay. Yeah, so each major line is a 32nd of an inch. So this right now is a 1/8 of an inch away. Let's take our object and let's move it further over. I believe that will get us close. Let's measure that distance again. So that's 1/2 inch. I went far too far. Okay. Let's measure our distance again. 1/4 inch. Okay, so we're at a 1/4 inch margin between there. Now, we know that we've got to go at an 1.5 inch radius. So what we need to do is to find a center point. So we know that we are 1 3/4, so 7/8, right on this major line here. Okay, then we want to go 1.5 inches over. Right here. So our center point's going to be right there. So we're going to find our center point here. Our center mark, select a circle, because that's what we're going to draw. I know that's the center of the thickness of our door. And we've got 7'10" and 7/8 there. That's just a reference point to where your origin point is. So we've got to go to 8/0 and 3/8. So we'll just drag this over until we get 8/0 and 3/8. That's where our 2-inch radius will come in. So we'll stop that right here. Now, here's what we're going to do. Let's trim and get rid of these extraneous components. In order to trim, let's create a group of these items. Actually, let's take a look. Let's create a group. Then we can get in here and trim. And we can go in there and trim these items. And what we're going to end up doing is making this look like a door. Okay, we've got all that trimmed, and now it kind of looks like a door. So let's now check our dimension here. Yeah, we've got a 1/4 inch there. Okay, so now we know that we need to find our... The question is what does that look like as it rotates? We've got an 1.5 inch radius out here. So let's go to the point where we're going to rotate this. Let's select the rotate command. And then we're going to come over here, if you recall, to the 8/0 and 3/8. Okay, and now we've got that item grabbed, and now we can rotate it. You can see what that's going to look like. With a 1/4 inch margin, we have no trouble with that at all. Okay. In fact, you can tell that you could easily make Add 1/8 of an inch. You'd have no problem with that at all. The question really becomes is what would you do if you wanted to leave it square-edged? Would it still work? Let's go back in time here and get rid of our arc. Okay. Now we're going to leave it square-edged. Let's rotate, select our object, rotate, select object. Our base point, eight oh and 3/8 again. Now we're going to rotate that. You can see with a 1/4 inch margin, if you leave that square edge, you're going to have less than a 32nd of an inch that you're going to be able to contend with. Less than a 32nd. Way less. Forgive me, less than a 64th. So, you know, what would you do if you're going to leave it square edge? Well, you're probably going to increase that by at least 1/8 of an inch. So, you know, if I were to take our jamb and move it over 1/8 of an inch, you know, to here. Let's rotate our object again. Let's give it our center point again. At 3/8, you're going to be probably okay. You're going to have 1/8 of an inch margin when that door opens and closes. Okay, so you can really see how the 1.5 inch radius is directly related to how much room you're going to need. So with that 1/8 of an inch radius, you'd be able to make that a quite tight margin between here. As I had said earlier, you can do a thicker door, but if we made this door 2 1/4 inch, we're going to run the same exercise. You know, what margins will be left between the edge of the door and the jamb. So this is just a, you know, an exercise in showing how that all relates, obviously, to the template here. So, doesn't need to be a 1/4 inch if you're going to radius. It can be less. But nonetheless, this is the guidance that the manufacturer gives us. Let's push through this. So we know our door height. You're going to have 9/16 down here, and then whatever you do at the top, 1/8 of an inch to a 1/4 inch. Keep it at 1/8. What you're going to do on the sides, it's going to be your finished opening less a 1/4 inch and a 1/4 inch, so a 1/2 inch total, unless you're surface mounting that jamb bracket, which would then it would be 3/8 on one side. But if you're going to radius both sides, in my opinion, I'd be making it 1/8 of an inch. I would make it 1/8 of an inch because we've proven that we have the margin with our AutoCAD example, plus the margin here and here will be the same, as well as here. It will look symmetrical, assuming you're going to mortise that jamb bracket. Okay. That heel plate is also intended for 1.5 inch radius door as well. Your top pivot information, and then some drawings on your trim plates. Now, here's a question that I get all the time from clients, and I had said earlier that it's unfortunate these plates are the same. When you take this plate and you put it on this preparation, when you take this and stick it over here, that hole and that hole are going to grab nothing. There's no wood. You're only going to hold those plates on by the top 2 screw holes, and that's, you know, you're going to have 2 empty holes there is the bottom line. I've had customers call and say, what do I do about that? I've said, well, what I would do is I would glue the screws in place so that it looked nice. I do wish that Bommer made handed plates, but that could introduce substantial chaos when it comes to the manufacturing process, that you get 2 right-hand plates, or, you know, you'd need one of each. I do wish that they did that, but they do it obviously for manufacturer's convenience. Now let's switch over to the installation instructions. A lot of this is going to be duplicated. Put that radius on that door. I used like a 2 or 2.5 inch horse DeWalt router where I cut the bottom of the base out to fit a very large round-over bit. And I would take that router and run it down this side of the door. Make 2 passes, no more. Don't tip the base at all. Flip the door end for end and then mortise the other side so you have a nice 1.5-inch radius. Okay. You've sized your door to the size. You've now radiused if you're going to, or you've accommodated for a square edge prep. You've prepped the top of the door for your pivot, which is really easy. It's right here. I would use a Forstner bit myself. 1-inch diameter, I would make 3 holes, 5/32 of an inch deep. That's just heavy on 1/8 of an inch. I would do that in the top of the door and in the header. I would pre-drill my holes for the screws and I would attach. I'd be done at that point. The preparation in the bottom of the door is simple and straightforward in my opinion. All you need to do is make the bottom of the door look like this. Cut over 5/16, come down 3 5/16, minus 1 7/16 is here. Come over 8 3/8, come down, come over 5/32, 13/16. You're going to mortise all of that out. All that part of the door will be gone. They do have this reference to this 1/8 of an inch deep groove here. The older models required that. The newer models now don't require this. I would skip that portion. It's not necessary. The hardware doesn't require it. There used to be a traveling pin inside of here when the door... there used to be here, as the door moved, there was a pin that was securing this, and it would move back and forth. It's no longer required. Attach the hardware now to the door. Physically screw the bottom, everything to the door and the header. Step 5, just as shown. Slide it into place. Make sure it's true, plumb, level, and square. Mark all of your holes for the jamb bracket. Remove all of that. Pre-drill the holes. Put it all back in and then attach with screws. You have to make sure that the vertical axis of pivoting is plumb. You've got 1.5 inches from the edge of the door all the way down. That dimension needs to be the same at the top of the door as it does at the bottom of the door, and that's what that dash line is indicating. Attach your finish plates. Use top holes and side plates only, it says there. That's the installation instructions. That's pretty easy. So we've gone over the template, the installation instructions, and the cut sheet. We've gone over the table. Okay, now there's a link below this video here to the manufacturer's page. And when we click on that, we'll be able to pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. And I would suggest that you review that. All things Bommer hinge related are in this book. Everything single and double acting hinge related is here. Bommer's name is quite synonymous with spring assisted hinges, and if you know their name at all, you probably do for the 3029 series double acting pivot that you see here. Whether it's not a matter of if you've seen them, you have seen them. They're everywhere. And if it's not a genuine Bommer, it's a clone of it. So that's likely why you know Bommer. But an option from the 3029 is, of course, the 7800 series that we're going over here. Suffice it to say, there are lots of options when it comes to spring-assisted hanging devices and hinges and pivots in here, and I would encourage a tour through this book. And I would certainly encourage a tour of the book and then reaching out to us for further guidance if necessary. Let's wrap up this video on camera. I am certainly an unapologetic brand ambassador for Bommer. I like all things Bommer. Most definitely their people that are at the plant. I've visited their manufacturing plant and their plating plant. I've known the folks there for many, many, many years, decades in fact. A really substantially awesome group of people that are there. We didn't talk about finishes. They have a plating plant. They literally have a facility that does nothing other than finish their exposed finished products. The trim plates for this, the heel plate. They can do over 30 finishes. Fun fact about the plating plant, the wastewater that they eject into the environment is cleaner than the municipal water supply. And the municipal local water supply is perfectly clean. So that's a fact that they're quite proud of. Another one that they're quite proud of is their Bommer logo, and you're not going to be able to see it, but it's right there. Right above the Bommer logo, it says Made in USA. That is a fact that they are extremely proud of, as am I to represent them. If you need any help determining what Bommer hardware to use, my name is Rich Howard. Please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.